Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here on this beautiful Tuesday. We are getting all sorts of people from around the country. Would love if you fire up the chat, let us know where you're calling from. Um, Tell us who you're with, which department you're with, where you're located. Of course, today we are giving a deep dive focus into the great state of Tennessee. So that is going to be fun here today. We had about 95 people sign up. That usually translates to about half people showing up live. So we're at about 40 right now, which is absolutely wonderful. Again, so great to see you all. Seeing some chats here. Great to see you all. Kenny Cornett, Jake Hayes, thanks for being here. Izzy Freed, Jonathan Lewin, great to have you here. John Burwell, thanks for coming here. And again, just for everyone, this may be your first time being in this roundtable setup. The idea of these sessions is really to be a content and community-led conversation. We have three guests that will be presenting here in a bit, talking about all things Tennessee Tech. But the format is here. I'm doing the intro, and then we will have three speakers, as you see, who are here today. Joined with Amos Halava, the investigator sheriff with Carter County, Greg Boyd, the Emergency Management Director for City of Spring Hill, and Sergeant for the class, Patrick Stellick, Joint Operator Supervisor for the state of Tennessee. So really grateful to have all three of them here today. And then after they all present, it's going to be open Q&A dialogue with everyone in the community that's here today. So I ask that if possible, keep your microphone off until later on, and then we will allow you to have the conversation. And feel free to fire up the chat with comments, questions. We are documenting this and putting everything into a learning document at the end. So without further ado, I would like to welcome you all to our virtual roundtable here today on the practical use of TAC for first responders with this focus on the great state of Tennessee. Go Vols. Today, we're going to dive deep into different use cases of TAC within the state of Tennessee and really look at how this is enhancing real-time situational awareness, incident command, and emergency management within Tennessee, and how you and your department can also learn and apply. We're going to cover aspects of drones, emergency aircraft, and the public safety operations, and a lot of different tracking and overall situational awareness technology of all things TAC. So we got a couple other people joining here, which is wonderful. So without further ado, I'm going to now allow each speaker to do a quick introduction of themselves. We're going to follow that into a couple different short presentations, then open Q&A with the community. So if we could go in the order of the speakers, Amos, Greg, then Patrick, quick intros, and then we'll jump into the meat and potatoes. So Amos, quick intro from you, and then Greg, then Patrick.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kevin. My name's Amos Halava. I am currently a deputy sheriff, Carter County, Tennessee. I've done a lot of special projects for the sheriff's office. I got a 21-year law enforcement career and a 23-year fire department career. Um, Situational awareness has been one of the things that I've focused on in my career for both agencies, and finding TAC answered a lot of the questions that I had and a lot of the needs that we had. And I'd be love to show y'all what we're doing, and if I can help anybody, be happy to. Go ahead and pass it on to Greg.
Yeah, my name is Greg Boyd. I'm the Emergency Management Director for the City of Spring Hill. We're located in two counties, both Williamson County and Murray County, Tennessee. I'm a second generation firefighter. I've spent 23 years in the fire service, most recently with the City of Spring Hill as a battalion chief, before moving over to emergency management, where I was the first employee in our agency. So I'm spinning everything up. And I came to TAC on a totally selfish reason, is because we've got double the agencies and double the software platforms being in two counties. So we're trying to aggregate that into our operations.
Thanks, Greg.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sergeant First Class Patrick Stellick. I am the Joint Operations Center Supervisor for the state of Tennessee. Kevin Edwards said. My job here is within for the Tennessee National Guard and the EM side of the house. We work in conjunction with TEMA. So we're their military counterpart upstairs, and we work closely with them in assisting and supporting the state of Tennessee.
Thanks, Pat. And so now we're going to go Amos, Greg, Pat, as far as quick little presentations. Get your comments ready. Think of some questions, throw it in the chat. We'll answer them here after they're all done. So I'm going to spotlight Amos and then followed by Greg and Patrick. So get your popcorn ready, listen. Amos, I'm going to spotlight you so you'll become big. Beautiful Amos here. And now the floor is yours, Amos.
Okay, can you see my screen there also?
It says has started. Yep, now I can see it looks like a
Okay.
text over.
All right. Yeah. Welcome, everybody. So, what we've done in Upper East Tennessee, and this will just give you kind of a situation of what we're dealing with right now. What you're looking at is my county is this one that's outlined here in yellow. It's Carter County, Tennessee. Left, we got Washington County. North, you got Sullivan County. And what you're seeing is not just the skittles on the map there that, it's the locations of officers, fire department. We got a bunch of different units, different disciplines. But in Upper East Tennessee, Homeland Security District 1, they chose to pool some money together to make this happen for the entire region. So instead of each agency trying to spin up a server and then try to federate it back and forth, we're running one large server, and then everybody gets to join onto it so that there's no cost per user to the agencies. And this is working out very well for us. Um, we also have interfaced with 911s. So what you'll see on my screen here is Sullivan County 911. I just have a simple call for service. If I click on this and look at the information on it, it just gives me the type of call and the address. That's all I get. But if I go to my county and I look at one, I would get not just the call for service and address, but all the notes that are associated with that. So there's multiple ways that you can interface your data from multiple jurisdictions and even multiple disciplines into one tool. And this is what made TAC very
Amos,
yeah.
there's a black box right in the middle of your screen on the right side. Right there.
I have the video of the guys. Is it maybe cutting that out on the call?
Yeah, it's just a black box at this
It's a
point.
black box and it's cutting everything out.
Okay.
Presentation.
Okay, so what you've seen there, let me move this over to the left-hand side. If that did it move over? Can you see it now?
Yeah.
It's on the left
Give
side.
it a shot now.
Okay, so now on the right, you can see right here, it just says attempt to locate and it gives an address. And if I go into this, there's a motor vehicle stop here. If I click on it, it actually has notes in here. It says, hey, exactly his location, what units, any notes that the dispatcher would put in there, you'd be able to see. So if you're talking about getting spun up on a situation very quickly, it works out extremely well. And then, of course, you see I'm actually down here near Gatlinburg, right now doing the Tennessee Sheriff's Association. But the different colors, because it is a regional server, we've let each agency kind of pick what color they want to use. We've not stuck very strictly to any particular guideline, even though what I think the Tennessee National Guard came up with is a very good, color scheme and even naming nomenclature. You can see if I zoom in on a unit, it'll actually say, what agency they're with, the radio call sign, their last name, and what kind of device that they're on. So I can know if they're on ITAC, ATAC, or whatever just by looking, right there. We also have, interfaced an ADSBX, so I can see that, this aircraft has spun up over here in Nashville. Unfortunately for the demo, it never works out that you have one locally, but we use that a lot, especially at the fire department, to know, because we'll call for a medical helicopter, and it could literally pick off from in our county or over here in Greenville. And the difference is about a 15, 20-minute flight time. So how, do I wait to shut down that highway where I'm going to land that chopper, or do I do it right away? A lot of times what we'll do is we'll track that aircraft coming in to make sure, that we're not shutting down a highway before we need to. Of these counties involved, their 911 centers all have access to this. So if you have that multi-jurisdictional pursuit or large incident that goes on, they can very quickly go into that location and lock in on that officer. I can see right here, this is an active call, domestic disturbance. I can see the location of the two officers that responded. And right now it looks like they're clearing off of that call. And, so just to kind of show I can lock in on those units as they drive around, it would clear them up, or they may just be getting there. Anytime you do a demo, nothing ever works exactly the way you want it to. But, for those, I'll lock in on this guy over here in Washington County. I can click on him. It'll keep him in the center of the screen. So this ability for not just 911, but even the guys in the field to lock in on somebody that might be involved in a pursuit, or, maybe there's a major incident going on near them. and we can keep up with exactly who's there and where they're at. Uh, so I think most of the people on here probably know more what TAC does. So just regionally, what we've done in this area is we don't have great user management like you'll see with COTAC and Texas Department of Safety. So what we've done is we basically issue a cert to each agency, so they get a username and a password, and they register. And what we'll do is probably every 6 months or a year, we'll revoke that certificate, make everybody re-register if that's what if we need to. But for the most part, we're managing it at the agency level just to be like, hey, it might just be one person has a username and password and logs people on. But you can see that once you start to get multiple jurisdictions on to one server, it really does make a difference. Uh, the city of Kingsport just ran FunFest, and right down here in this area, you can see on my screen, they had over 100 different police, fire, EMS, EMA users that were being tracked. So if they had any type of medical situation or need law enforcement somewhere, it become real easy to direct them in to assist people. Whereas before, it was very difficult, even using a grid system in a compacted area, because it was mostly up and down this entire street and this stadium, and then spread off in different parts around it. This gave them a really good tool to be able to direct people into areas when they needed it. And we also use it as a day to day. My agency over here, Carter County, Tennessee, the procedure is when you go 10-8 and start of your shift, they turn their TAC on. When they go 10-7, they turn it off so that we can see where units are at. And our 911, of course, uses this to track without having to pay for AVL service or anything else. That's just kind of a brief what we're doing here. I'll go ahead and shut this down and turn this over to Greg so he can show his stuff. But if I can figure it out here.
Let me stop spotlighting you for a quick second. Um, sorry, where? 1 second here. Or all right. Now we got Greg. Greg, the floor is yours. And everyone continue to put questions in the chat. I saw a few there. We'll collect them all and address them once we're done with the speakers. So Greg, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. So, like I said before, coming to TAC, I was exposed to TAC from Dallas Clements with the National Guard, and I just thought it was going to be a really good fit for us. So I don't really consider myself a subject matter expert in TAC per se. I'm a subject matter evangelist and a subject matter investigator. So I'm always looking for articles or videos online to try to expand how I can try to bring TAC into our local agencies. We are also using a certificate. We currently have two servers running, with one where we have uh, certificates issued to area agencies. We do not have any information from our CADs being brought in yet. That's kind of the next step that we're really looking to move on. But I'm in touch with the right people, and we're trying to move forward with that. So, of course, getting into TAC, what's the first thing you need to do? Hopefully, we've got some new people in here. You got to get on tac.gov and just absorb that information. So, they put out a lot of information, and you know, most in the public safety realm, fire, police, emergency management, EMS, they don't like to read the directions, but you'd be surprised what you can glean from paging through those PDFs. But when we first came to TAC, my office is right next to our IT director, and I said, "Hey, is this something we can do?" And he said, "Yeah, I think so." And he goes into the back room and pulls out a server that had been decommissioned and just kind of set it on the table. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So I just thought that was it at this point. And then after about a week or so, I asked him, I said, "Hey, what do you think about moving forward?" And he's like, "Okay." So He created an account on tac.gov. I think we were at 4.8 now. So, and we've upgraded to 5.1. So both of our servers are running 5.1 now. And we're, when his time allows, we work on it. We have the media MTX video servers that are attached to both of our servers, so we can bring in the UAS tool and the ICU feeds. And then let me back up just a little bit. I'm an iOS guy, so I spent, you know, the better part of a decade uh, messing around with iOS, and then when I tried the iTac version, I was underwhelmed to say the least. And I called my Verizon rep. I said, "Hey, am I ready for an upgrade on my work phone?" And he's like, "Funny you say that. You are." So he sent me an Android, and we were off and running. And that was probably about this time last year. So trying to implement it, uh, you're basically trying to sell it. So you bring them in, you meet with your agency department heads and say, "Hey, this is what we can do for you. And this is the training that's out there. If you don't want anybody to see where you're at, we can arrange that. If you want to create different groups where your SWAT team doesn't want to be seen by patrol, or you don't want to see what the fire department's doing, we can arrange that. But we also let them know that in the event of an emergency or an incident, we can turn the switch and let everybody see everybody else. Um, Trying to practice things. Uh, we just started with a a fireworks show, and I got some cash devices from a local agency partner and put ATAC on them, and we monitored the uh, the parking shuttle so we could see it on the map. We could see our Skittles moving around, so we could direct traffic in that way. And then after we crawled with that, then I made a call to the Verizon VRT, or the emergency response team that they have, and they gave me several dozen cash phones. So you become an expert in setting up mass quantities of devices, and they were nothing but helpful. They're like, how many you need? I said, how about 50? They're like, okay. And the funny thing is they're like, hey, let's have a meeting. So we scheduled a meeting. We had their regional representative for the emergency response team. We had our account manager, and then we had another administrator from them. And we just scheduled a meeting because we wanted to meet face to face before an emergency. So that when we call in the middle of the night and we say, hey, man, I need communications and devices. Can you help me? I have a personal relationship with that guy, and I exchange texts with that guy regularly. So they've been nothing but helpful. We do use them. The city of Spring Hill does, but I know other agencies have got with them, and they're super helpful with them. So um, next, we did a big uh, Christmas parade, and we handed them out to all police, fire, and EMS on scene. And then we instituted the video servers. So we used the UAS tool. We were able to keep overwatch of the procession, even though the rain made it terrible. But then we also used the TAC ICU plugin with some of our devices, and we put it out at the front and at the back of our parade, and we could bring that video stream into the command post so we could tell exactly where they were, not just from the dot, but also what the traffic was coming and going. So hopefully that gives you a little snapshot on how we've been doing. I'm happy to answer any questions. I am not, I do not have a technology background. Okay, I'm a history major. So everything I've learned is come from the community, whether it's via Slack or going to conferences or text messaging a lot of people that are involved with this. And you will not find a better group of people in the country. So you'd be surprised what you can learn from the tax syndicates videos, just doing Simon Says while they're playing in the background. And I can't encourage you to just mess around and find out, so to speak, keeping it G-rated for everybody, but you just have to plug away. These guys have been there before, and they know the obstacles that you're going to encounter. And you have to dedicate your time to learning the software because it's not like posting a picture of your steak and potato that you made on the grill on social media. You're going to definitely have to get in and learn the ins and outs, not only um, of the main ATAC itself, but each plugin is a force multiplier, whether it's data sync or WASP or the ICU. It's only limited by your imagination. So I'll leave on that thought there.
Well said. Thanks, Greg. And now we got one last speaker. We have first Sergeant First Class Pat Stellick. So Pat, I'm going to now spotlight you for everyone, and then after Pat goes, we are going to do the open Q&A. So keep firing up the chat, everyone. And Pat, the floor is yours.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So hello again. My name is Sergeant First Class Patrick Stellick, Joint Operations Center Supervisor here for the Department of Military for the state of Tennessee. I am co-located and co-work with, shout out to Lieutenant Colonel Dallas Clements, who has offered for me to be his stand-in today. But I will say this, that a lot of my learning from TAC has actually been through real world events and almost kind of getting hands-on right away and just starting to utilize the system. So on this first one of our little slide deck here that we have, there are many common operating picture programs out there. The Tennessee National Guard used the Team Awareness Kit as its primary COP since 2019 because we believe it's the best COP for all hazards and multi-agency interoperability. In this picture that you see here, you can see convoys of about 1,200 soldiers and airmen leaving Tennessee to assist the state of Florida as Hurricane Ian is punching through the East Coast. There are multiple overlays applied here to assist everyone from the service members on the ground to senior leaders in Nashville. These include approved routes, checkpoints, and location of camps for resting overnight. Florida's Grand Divisions and JRSOI site and the location of the hurricane, along with future track predictions from NOAA, were updated live every 5 minutes during this specific mission for when we were called to assist Florida in Hurricane Ian in 2022. Other utilizations for here, for example, this one right here, paper maps always just seem to kind of be like in short supply, when an incident occurs and you have to respond to that incident. But even when they are produced in mass, they rapidly become outdated because the incident is constantly evolving, constantly changing, correct? So during the Waverly flood in 2021, after this Waverly, Tennessee, we received over 20 inches of rain in less than 24 hours, and we relied TAC heavily to share data received from our LNO in the city's incident command post with all of our personnel. And as you can see here on this shows like the staging area, where our folks were staged at the armory there in Waverly, Tennessee. And then you could see like some of our folks moving flood debris out from that incident that we also had responded to at that time. Get to the next one here. For this one here, TAC has significantly reduced the reporting burden based on units. On this one here, you can see that units, convoys over 300 military police and truck drivers on their way to Louisiana's JRSOI site for Hurricane Ida. And how this is significant for us is that this allows us at the state headquarters level, we can actually track those service members live as they're hitting their checkpoints along the route to the location. It takes the burden away from the convoy commanders and from those leadership on the ground to have to call in and report because sometimes cell service isn't just always the greatest. So this definitely assists us with this. And then on the, going the wrong way. There we go. For this one here, for the third and final presidential debate between Biden and Trump in 2020, we were called to assist with security around the site. We were able to effectively orient all the soldiers to the campus while we were still staging at the armory, one county away. Even though the local police department was not using TAC at the time, we were able to provide them with a laptop, allowing them to track the location of all our teams in real time. The teams themselves also had a better understanding of where they were on the campus at any time. We did this by pulling in the campus map with building names, as you see in the white here. And local police and road closures and Secret Service temporary fencing and barricades seen in red and yellow, and 3D models of the key buildings on campus are also displayed on the map here. Finally, our force protection analysts were able to keep tabs on emerging potential threats and share information effortlessly through the combination of push-to-talk communications and shared map graphics. So that was the Belmont presidential bait in 2020. This one here right here is the December tornado outbreak in 2023 that just occurred. This is a great example of the speed that can be achieved from sharing map data electronically. The red lines are the preliminary tracks provided by NWS hours after the touchdowns. This allowed us to quickly identify where to take the governor to do, and for the team director, so that we can actually do damage assessments effectively to be able to assist our agency partners. Our state emergency management agency is a heavy user of Esri ArcGIS. Thanks to the Esri plugin, and we're able to pull any of those layers they share in ArcGIS. We also appreciate that TAC will ingest any industry standard GIS formats when we receive a request from Louisiana for Blackhawks for water bucket support for the Tiger Island fire. We were able to quickly download the official incident maps and share them through TAC and the flight clues before they even made it to the airport and remotely throughout the mission. So this is just an example of Tiger Island fire here, and the maps in which were shared during that incident. And thanks to Joe Austin at Nine Hills Technology for this one here. We have all the Tennessee Department of Transportation TDOT cameras on an overlay available on our server through the users through TAC, giving them eyes on conditions of where the incident may be developing. These are publicly available feeds, but they are just integrated onto the map that we are currently using. It's just an overlay in which we can turn on and off, so that if we're sending convoys or whatnot through an area, we can quickly kind of get an idea of what the situation is on their route to their location. These plugins, from TAC, are we call wide area search, or WASP, and in an exercise we conducted right after adopting TAC, we practiced how we could quickly share the progress across the areas of responsibility. So this just shows us going through the houses and being able to mark the houses and update that live without having to constantly report back, so that everyone can maintain situational awareness in more of a real-time scenario throughout that event. And then here, the Army's legacy unmanned aerial systems do not natively support TAC. That is changing soon with the fielding of Skydio drones. In the meantime, there's a video that shows a search exercise conducted in October from the Maury County SAR, which this is just a kind of shows you that when we have the drones flying every once in a while, we can actually have them where we can see the drone flying, and then we can actually integrate the video feed into the system here. So this kind of just shows you, like, as the drone was flying, this is the video feed in which we're actually seeing, and then it's actually mapping and showing where the photos and whatnot are being taken. So like here's the still picture of a simulated search and the subject pinned on a TAC map for the Maury County SAR exercise. In our state of Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, it was one of the earliest adopters of TAC, thanks to their work with the makers of the optics package on board the aircraft. Shout over from Churchill Navigation. TBI can share the live location of their aircraft where they're on the surface of the earth. Their cameras found live. Gone is the confusion of verbal air to ground coordination when we're doing joint training exercises or joint events. And even if you don't have the connectivity for the device in the field, their offline mapping capability is actually very useful. In 2023 here, as you can see on the screen, we participated in an exercise in Bulgaria where we wouldn't have cell phone service, but we utilize mesh radios, and we're able to maintain situational awareness across the area. So this is actually a training exercise that was done out in Bulgaria with some of our folks. And then some of the other process too, when you're utilizing and implementing the system, I can't stress enough, you have to get hands-on with the system. You have to use it. You have to work with it, and talk to people, because there are a lot of people out there that are a lot smarter than about the system, and you learn a lot from them. I've learned a lot from Lieutenant Colonel Dallas Clements. I've learned a lot from Amos Halava on here. He's actually come and helped me set up. Right now, we're running about 4 servers. We have a State Guard server. We're jointly sharing and utilizing the FBI server. We have our own internal Tennessee National Guard server. And then Amos had helped with getting our ADSB so that we could actually track our aircraft live within the state here. And then some of the first utilizations of TAC that we used in the state was actually during the presidential inauguration back when Trump got inaugurated. And that was very interesting. And that was a quick learning curve on how to utilize that during when we used WinTAC at that time. But I will gladly answer any questions for anyone for my experience and my shared use of the system and my humble knowledge of this system. But that's what I have for the Tennessee National Guard.
Quick little snaps and applause. Thank you, Amos, Greg, and Patrick, for the great conversations there. Pat, if you want to stop sharing your screen there if possible. So the chat was great. Man, there was a lot going on there. So there's a couple that I can kind of speak to, but I want everyone to kind of use this next half an hour as a chance to be selfish. But when you're called upon, give a quick intro, who you are, and ask your question or drop your 2 cents. Try not to talk for longer than 90 seconds or 2 minutes. Want to get around the horn here. There were quite a few questions I saw around CAD integration, CAD and TAC. Maybe I'll ask the first question, and again, okay to get technical here. Amos, Greg, Pat, you want to touch on how CAD integrates TAC or lack thereof, and what are maybe any suggestions on how you've done it or anything around that?
I can start on that one if you want. I've done 2 currently and it made it pretty easy. The CAD systems that we integrate with had an API we could call. So I actually just wrote a Node-RED. If anybody's not familiar with Node-RED, it's a quick way to spin something up that other people can help you maintain. So I have a TAC server, and then I have a tools server that I run a Node-RED instance on that I do all the processing on, and then I push those COTS into TAC. So it keeps it kind of separated out, the processing that needs to be done to pull the API, spin it up into a COT, and then pushes it over into TAC kind of sideways. And I do that for a couple of reasons. I limit the TAC server, the ports that are exposed. So it just comes from that tool server. That helps me with my security, making sure only things I want get pushed in also. But then we also allow that to come in on a channel. So channels are like groups, so you can separate out data. So I can turn on and off those different feeds. I can turn on and off aircraft. I can turn on and off 911 centers if I want to, because I push them individually into different channels. But you could pull the data anyway as long as you can get to it. So if your CAD system has a way that you can just run a query, a SQL query, and pull out your active calls for service, and then you could just build any script probably to push that into TAC, in whatever tool you have. And so Greg Albert, who has done some amazing stuff, and I'll forward this with like what Patrick said and Greg both. I'm not a subject matter expert on TAC or Linux or anything else, but I've learned a lot from the guys on the Slack group. So if you find you get stuck, those are great resources, the TAC Slack group, the TAC Discord, and some of those others. But using some of those scripts to process that data and then push it over into TAC, it makes it a lot simpler. But it really is just as long as you can get to the data. And then I use the stale feature. So if a call for service hasn't been updated in, I think it's 90 seconds or something, it just drops off. And so that way you keep only the active calls on there is one of the ways that I'm doing it. And, be happy to help anybody who's trying to implement those.
And we'll be gathering all the information here and sending out into a final document. So Not sure if and anyone else, if you want to raise your virtual hand to kind of start this, there's other chats questions in the chat, but Greg or Pat, anything else you want to add on to the CAD conversation before we go into the next question, or if anyone wants to kind of, I may voluntold someone. I'm looking at I see Rob
I'll
Edwards,
I'll
Collins
say
in the back.
something.
But
I'll
yeah,
say
Greg,
something, Kevin.
please.
I saw where somebody was asking about statewide tax server. Um, we use the National Guard has a server that they're allowing first responders to use. I know a lot of agencies are using that. That's where I would direct you to get your feet wet. I was at TAC offsite a couple weeks ago, and the COTAC, they're trying to brand that as a generic option to push out to states as needed. I would be surprised if we see that in the next year, probably, but that's also something that to be thinking about. And then la in May of this year, when there was tornadoes in Murray County, I was able to deploy some devices and get some people on a map. And I had the I don't know if it was a blessing or a curse, but the governor walked through and I got to bend his ear a little bit about ATAC and showed him what it was about. So it's been mentioned. There's some kind of oars in the water, and hopefully we can build this out so we can really take the lead on this behind some of these other states that are a little farther along than us.
Thanks, Greg. There's other questions in the chat, but I'm going to let kind of people in the group raise your hand, or I may call and see people. I see I mentioned Rob Edwards, Colin Zapalek, John Burwell. Kind of looking at you three first, and Chief Z as well, and Charlie. If you want to kind of add any 2 cents, a comment, question to add to the conversation, I'm kind of volunteering here to Rob and Colin and John first. John, you went off mute, so you want to add any comments, any question to everything going on here?
Sure. My name is John Burwell, and I'm a command sergeant major with the Tennessee State Guard. We were there at Waverly as well, working side by side with the National Guard. Um, about a year and a half ago, I was introduced to TAC at our annual AT, and I was very impressed. I was with Task Force Odin over in Afghanistan and Iraq from 2010 to 2015. And quite naturally, I was very familiar with Blue Force Tracker. And when I saw TAC over here, I was thinking to myself, here we go again. This is a wonderful tool. And I'm very much a proponent of TAC. We've got CW3 Simpson from the Tennessee State Guard. He's on board today, and he's the force coordinator with TAC, and we've started working together. So really, for about a year now, I'm pretty much self-taught with TAC and getting more and more familiar with it every day. And I just think it's a great tool. And I've seen what our law enforcement partners have been doing with that. And I'm just so impressed. And I'm looking at TAC as being the command and control and the coordination tool that we're needing in the State Guard. So looking forward to working with people and learning as much as I can learn about TAC and putting it to good use.
Well said, John. Anyone want to add on to that? And then before we go to Rob and Colin, Pat?
I was going to say, based off of John's comment, yeah, if you are familiar with the State Guard for Tennessee, CW3 Simpson, out of that group, he's a member of our Joint Adaptive Battle Staff here at JFHQ, and he is a very well welcomed member of the team that has helped with some of this integration, right, along with Amos here also. So I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, and definitely shout out to CW3 Michael Simpson for his knowledge and input, because if it wasn't for him for some of these things, a lot of this wouldn't be working properly. I know he's definitely assisted us as the Tennessee National Guard when it comes to especially like the drone integration and being able to effectively utilize that. And he's constantly up to date and constantly in the know of some of the latest items of what happens. So for the Tennessee State Guard, that is a great resource for a point of contact for that.
Thanks, Pat. All right, so I'm looking at you, Rob, Edwards, and Colin. Just kind of volunteering you guys for comments, questions to add on to what's going on here.
Hey, Rob Edwards from Humphreys County Sheriff's Office. Um, we are Waverly. We are the home of the flood. So for us, that's what kind of inspired us to get towards TAC. We're doing a pretty good job of getting it integrated system wide. We used a grant recently to put devices in everybody's hands, and some other upgrades as well. We actually bought a GoTenna system. So if our network is down, like we suffered during the flood, we would be able to deploy that, in a mesh network setting. Anybody ever wants to look at the GoTenna system, we can do it. Our IT guy is on here. He built our server out. He's done a great job of learning all things TAC. I think some of our biggest shortfalls is trying to get uh, rapidly integrated. We're having a little bit of buy-in problem still with some of less the less technology savvy guys, or they feel like Big Brother's watching them and that type of thing. So it's going to be very important for us to get CAD integrated, and we've had some problems with our dispatch on that. They're not part of our organization, and so we're running into a little bit of a problem there. I feel like once we get that accomplished, and we start working together as a team, we're gonna be set up pretty good, and the guys are gonna they're gonna respond. One of the things that we're starting to do right now, in fact, I did one just a few minutes ago. We're putting like gate access codes, dropping a pin on a location, putting the gate access code. Sometimes we're rural. We have to take a dog to the animal shelter. So if you go to the animal shelter, you there's actually you can spin the wheel there and read the comments, and it tells you the passcode to get inside there. And so we're trying to make it a place that everybody has to go to and upload as much data without turning the map into just a bunch of cluster and clutter. But it's being received okay. We got some guys that love it. We got some guys that hate it. We got some former military guys that have been around it, and hopefully we get the buy-in a little bit more. Dispatch is the big thing for us. Amos has been a big help. I don't think in law enforcement we've got a lot of people that are just uh, that have bought in at all in law enforcement, and it's neat to see what they're doing. And we hope to model that and do better. We work on it every day. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I hope we do this a little bit more often, and try to keep everybody motivated and still learn, because it's constantly evolving, and I think we all really have to keep evolving with it and learn and implement the things that we need to make this a better program.
Thanks, Rob, for saying all that. Greg, Amos, Pat, want to add anything to that before we pass over to Colin?
I saw someone mentioned in the chat about cost and some about 500,000 or something. That's the I don't want to do it price. Okay, so what I would tell you is get a little money out of your training budget, like $100. Go to YouTube and go to AJ's video on the tax syndicate on the SSD node, and for less than $100, I think it's like $70. You can go one right after the other and follow his steps and have a server set up. And it took me 3 tries, but I did finally get it. I've got it set up, and that's my trainer. And that's how that way, if I need to mess around with something, I'm not going to break anything. So I would definitely look into that. Um, I would talk to your IT guy, take him some donuts or, a cheeseburger and say, hey, this is what we want to do. And how can you help us? Do you have anything that we could use already? I would say probably 8 times out of 10, he probably has something sitting in the closet that will work perfectly. you can run TAC server on a Raspberry Pi. Okay. This time last year, I didn't even know what a Raspberry Pi was. So that's a credit card size computer that will run TAC server. So um, you could run it on a laptop. You could run it on a tower. All of those things, you just have to find a way and you have to be motivated. One of the things that I took away from the offsite a couple weeks ago was that it's, if you're looking at a map, make sure it's TAC. Okay. If you're looking at two maps, you're looking at too many maps. So Greg Albrecht said that. I can't emphasize that enough. And one other point he made, he said, software doesn't weigh anything. Okay, you can put it on your phone and it's not going to weigh you down. So I remember 20 years ago, I went to a fire symposium and John Salka was there from FDNY, and he was talking about when they implemented the rabbit tool on the rescue. And he said it came in a box and it sat on the table for a month. And then every shift, I just put it back on the truck because the guys didn't want to look at it and they would just take it off. So that's something I'm going to say. Uh, I've got some notes here from some of the comments from the other presenters that I'm already tracking down. So I'm all for having this as often as we can make it happen. So
Heck, we might do it daily at this rate. This is good stuff.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah, Chief, you want to add on?
So there's somebody's got a comment in here that, CTI, FEMA, doesn't use TAC, they use ArcGIS. And, one of the things that I think most of us will probably agree to is that, integration is the key to what we do today. And, proprietary based programs really isolate people and, in an environment in which really no one stands alone. You've got to work together. It's really about how we integrate things and do things. And if you want to spend $500,000 to get where you want to get to, great for you. You got money. If you want to do it, on the cost-effective, cheap end, that works too. And I think, if you watch and do anything right now, and I think Patrick there from the National Guard would agree with me, look at what Ukraine's been able to do working against Russia. They're quite the powerhouse. At least most people thought they were. But with 3% of the U.S. budget or the military budget, they've done pretty good damage to the to Russians and the use of technology and how things work. And I would tell you that AJ is probably he's got a lot of stuff out there, and he's one of the top people that I go to listen to. But what we agree upon most of all in all that we do, in some of us that are out there, integration, coordination, cooperation, collaboration is really the name of the game. Again, I don't care how big you are, but the bigger you are, the harder you fall, and you really have got to get together and use technology and use the integration. And that's, integration is really, if you're out there, you want to find an integrator to integrate your different programs and come together. And that's really the key to what we do. And I think TAC is just another good way of bringing us together in this environment in which we have to respond, whether it's locally, regionally, nationally, or internationally. It's a great tool.
Well said, Chief. Amos, you had come off me for a second. I want to throw it to you, and then next I want to throw it to Abram, and then Colin for some comments. So Amos, Abram, and Colin.
Yeah, just two things to follow up what the chief said there. I'm currently working with 3 EMA directors to get their SARTOPO and CalTOPO integrations in with TAC, because it's just another way to pull that information back in. So just know that, it's just another tool in your toolbox. It's a way to look at TAC, and it's a great way to tie multiple tools together. It's almost like having a tool belt, and you can put different things on it. So if you are using ArcGIS for some stuff, and you're using something else for video, and you're using something else for search and rescue, SARTOPO, CalTOPO, great programs, integrate them in with this, it makes them even better. And that's kind of the way to look at it. Sometimes we all get too focused on one thing, and we can't see the bigger picture. And you really do have to back up and look at the things that each person uses their tool for. And just know that TAC's a great way to tie a bunch of those tools into one. And to follow up on what Greg said about cost, I run my servers on Azure, and I'm running a very powerful 4-core instance of Rocky Linux to do my server. It costs like $100 a month, something like that. So that's on the high end. You can go to DigitalOcean and spin up a box for probably 12 bucks, or maybe 20 bucks if you want one of the higher end ones. If you just want to get on and play around with something and you don't want to go buy hardware, and you just literally go to YouTube, follow the instructions, and you can spin up something. Somebody even mentioned, free tax server. There's a lot of that stuff out there, and some of them others. Don't just look in one place, and go to the community and get help. That whoever put the comment about the 500 grand, that's literally is somebody just saying, I don't want anything to do with this. This is not expensive, and it's very powerful, and it's worth looking into.
All right, continue rapid fire here. We may go past the hour here. We got a lot of content here. Abram, I saw you had your hand up earlier. I want to throw it to you, and then we'll throw it to Colin after Abram.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kevin. Appreciate you guys passing this out. This is awesome what you guys are doing. Just wanted to throw back out. So for those that don't know, FEMA does run TAC. They've been running it since 2017 during Hurricane Harvey. That's a thing. Also, I wanted to put out to everybody also on the TAC Product Center on the site, the TAC server training video. The one that I have up there is pretty outdated from several offsites ago. So we are currently updating that video right now for TAC training to, how to spin it up. That will be, as soon as I get some time in my life, I will get a new one up there for everyone to take a look at. And so just want to let you know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abram. All right, continue rapid fire here. We'll throw it to Colin, and I see some other people off screen like Jacob, BUIS. I'm looking at you, and even Charlie. So, Colin, comments, questions, what do you got from you?
Yeah, so I'll say that I'm definitely a fan of the Node-RED flow chart. In fact, I guess in the last week or so, I was just fiddling around because somebody over at Texas Parks and Wildlife on Public Safety Connect had asked about, or Bridge for Public Safety, sorry, had asked about using a non Android or iOS device to track boats that are kind of left around the state in a cache. And I came up with a quick, just down and dirty. It takes MQTT from something like a MikroTik knot and pushes that location information into Node-RED. Node-RED then converts it over to COT and sends it to a TAC server. And so, yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the Node-RED development. You can run it full time, or you can just use it for quick, down and dirty. I don't have any real experience with JavaScript, and it took a little bit of trial and error, but I had it figured out in about an hour. So I'm definitely a fan of that.
Love that. Thanks, Colin. Pat, Amos, Greg, anything else you want to add to that before I throw it to Jacob? All right. We'll throw it to Jacob, then I see Charlie, and then also Jess Milner. So Jacob, Charlie, Jess.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Jacob. I'm a Dutch guy. I'm not actually in the military, but we're looking into building a startup based on ATAC, seeing if we can make this easier to onboard and use it for events, both in public safety, but also in logistics. Well, don't have a lot of experience yet, so I'll throw you a question. I'm seeing a lot of examples of tracking units, tracking assets that involve people, which means you give them a device. Do you guys do anything with tracking actual assets? So like a box or something, or a vehicle that doesn't necessarily have people on it all the time. And if so, what kind of technology are you using there?
Anybody else want to take that one?
I can talk to that just a little bit. There's some off the shelf stuff that you can purchase that will still show on attack server that the one that comes to mind is the Atos from Tough Stump. They have a product that they use a lot of times with K9. Also for Tack Tracker, for just if you just wanted to do a vehicle, I think Tack Tracker or even the iOS version. So you're not, you don't have much of a map interface, but it is putting you on the map. I think those things are out there. And then it's whatever your programming friends can help you put together in Node-RED. So if you can get a signal from something, you can parse that into a Node-RED and send it to your server and get your get your stuff tracked. I think the way you're looking for. How to do that? I don't know, but it is available because everything's open source, and it's just how much you want to spend. That may be anywhere from a $4,000 to an $8,000 investment if you wanted to do pay somebody, to custom build you something. But it's out there, and the capability is there.
Yeah, definitely. And that's I'm an engineering manager by trade. I'm a software developer, so we'll be building tons of stuff. But we're mostly getting into issues with that first step. So actually getting the data, getting the signal out there. And we're in a very permissive environment here. Like I have 5G everywhere, and but a lot of the tracking stuff is either very power intensive or quite expensive in the sense that you don't want to lose it. Like I can't slap a tracker on the box and then lose 5 of them per day. That's not going to be feasible in terms of supply. But I'll have a look at ATAS. Thanks. I'll have a look.
The Forest Service was given direction a couple of years ago to track resources, includes personnel, on wildfires. So they issued an RFP. That's winding through the process right now. It'll be something to watch here around the corner for the tracking side of the house. But for all their wildland incidences, what they're really going to do is they're going to have a contractor who will show up if you don't have tracking capability, and then be able to provide those to the personnel that are out there. But again, I really think there's a lot of capability out there today. I was just speaking at a FirstNet executive forum in Riverside, California yesterday, where a company called Fleet Complete that when I was the state fire and rescue chief, we used to track all of our rolling stock out there. And so what I really liked about it was not only was it on FirstNet, but the minute we ran out LTE, it rolled over to satellite base. Didn't ping as quickly, but it still provided us with the capability that we needed to have. And they just had a new device coming out that's very small. I mean, smaller than if my fist were sitting there. Box that was coming out. No real. I think they were going to be provided. They were signed up for the service. They were going to charge you $9 a month, and didn't take much to install it at all. And the technology is changing so quickly and so fast. There's really no reason why we can't do it. And I mean, at the end of the day, your cell phone, people's individual cell phone, if you're a volunteer fire department or something, they could also be used as well to track people. I mean, it's just where you want to go. We're right around the corner. I did a deal about disasters, and one of the things we talked about late last week was where we're going with cell phones going to satellites. Several of the cell phone carriers are going to use AST satellites. We're getting ready to launch, but our cell phones will be able to crank over to those. No different than they do on an iPhone 14 or 15 now. But the difference is they won't be free. Of course, you'll have to pay a little bit of difference, but it's really going to change things as we continue to evolve with the low orbiting satellites and everything else out there. And it's just the cost, and then how we utilize them, and still the ability to hit the bird in the sky, depending, where you're at in the mountainous territory. So,
thanks, Chief. And we're at the top of the hour. I think we'll go a little bit longer, but Charlie, I see your camera on, so I wanted to give you a chance. Any comments, questions you want to ask to the conversation here, and then if anyone else has anything, you can't put your camera on, raise your virtual hand. If not, after this, we'll go to kind of final comments from our speakers. Charlie.
Charlie Tidwell with Ascent Integrated Tech. I work remotely in St. Louis, Missouri, metro area. Ascent is based out of Chicago. Uh, our key business is X, Y, and Z tracking of personnel, uh, with our first integration being completed into the TAC platform. No sales pitch. Honest question to Greg. Um, from the EMA management perspective, as you're rolling out TAC with multiple first responder disciplines, have you had any kind of pushback from individual agencies with adoption towards TAC?
That's all I get is I'm a one person agency. So when I say, "Hey, let me show you this," okay, then I have to set up a meeting and then I have to show them. Well, I got buy-in from the fire department. They bought Android cell phones to put on their apparatus. Okay. Now they have ATAC, they have WASP, they have DataSync. Okay. But guess what? Now I got to get them to turn it on. Okay. So the complaint goes to, well, it uses the battery too much. Well, it's your work phone. Leave it plugged up. That's my immediate answer.
Right.
So it's just a constant, put that rabbit tool back on the rescue is how I like to liken that to. And and then I think once I get it turned on, then it's going to be, hey, I need you to your eyes up, not just in the map. So it's going to be like a thermal camera, going into a fire and relying on that too much, and then the battery goes dead on that, and then you don't have your awareness to back out from inside there. So it's going to be a double-edged sword. I would love to get to that point where I have to teach that, but we're just not there yet.
Understood. Patrick, if I could throw a question your way, talking
Yes,
about
sir.
Tennessee National Guard with tracking of UAVs through TAC, how are the UAVs broadcasting? And if it's confidential, that's fine. I'm just curious to know from, again, a multidisciplinary response, what's going on or how that's working.
Yeah, so we have items like what Greg's showing there, and then you can also go into for like some of these other systems. Even if you did it, let's say if your agency had bought like DJI drones or some kind of civilian broadcast drone, right? You can log into that Wi-Fi signal, that IP address, and be able to track that way also with your cellular device. Or if you wanted to attach some kind of tracking antenna to the drone, you can do it that way. And I was going to say that even just really quickly, also just for the audience's knowledge, I mean, when it comes to like asset tracking, we use Shout Nanos and things of that nature to be able to track those assets, and we integrate that into TAC, so that's how we're able to even track like our airframes as they move around the state, so that we can just keep an eye on things and make sure that our crews are safe. So hopefully that
Thank
answers
you.
your question, Charlie.
Yeah, very good.
Hey, Charlie, this
sorry,
is
go on.
this is that Nine Hill product. It's like $300. It brings in the remote ID. So I heard earlier that have a range of up to 4 miles. I haven't tested it that far yet. I've kind of in the preliminary stages, but it brings in that remote ID for a counter UAS type of feed going forward.
Yeah, to that point, I've got one of those too, Greg, and I've tracked multiple drones over 2.5 miles away from my location, picked them up very easy to be able to track both the pilot and the drone itself very effectively. And Charlie, to your point about buy-in, I can tell you at first, so I am since 2019 setting up this regional tax server in East Tennessee. And the buy-in from a lot of agency, even officers, it's like, oh, you just want to spy on me. That stuff has all went away. The usefulness of the tool after they see it long enough has went away from this, oh, you're just wanting to track me to see what I'm doing, to a comm center, check his tax, see where he's at when there's a problem. And when it becomes that kind of tool, that's when you've got the buy-in. And so you do get that a little bit at first, and that takes some education. And it takes some just honest conversations with people like, hey, if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, then you probably don't need to be doing this job in the first place. Down to when you see a bad critical situation coming on, and I hear my guys on the radio say, "Comstar, check his location," because they know they rely on that tool on a day-to-day basis, and then they go to where they need to be at. That's when you know you've got that buy-in, and that's just the best way I can put that too. from my experience there.
Good response. Thank you.
Um, Kevin, for those who aren't in Tennessee, but anywhere in the country, most of the National Guard units have a J3 shop that does their civil support out there. And if you're not, familiar with how the Guard/military operates, reach out. They're usually very cordial. A lot of them like to get involved in some of your local training and some of those issues out there. And it really helps build capability and relationships. But there are things that the Guard can do with some of their capability and their expertise to assist, at the local level, the state level, to actually build some of this capability really very easily. Share what they know, what they've learned. They're constantly, training and drilling back and forth with their own resources. A lot of states, and we got Tennessee on board, so they're actually the state emergency management agency for Tennessee, and almost half the states in the U.S. are actually their state emergency management agency offices are controlled or managed by the National Guard, but they're robust capability, and again, they're there to assist, work with the locals, and again, if everything works correctly, it should go from the local, up to a county or a parish level, regionally within the state, and then at the state agency to the national. Again, we want everything to build from the bottom up, not from the top down. And I think they're just a great resource and a great bunch of people to have on board.
Well said, Chief. And I saw there was maybe one other hand raised. I missed it. It's not any. I don't know if it was Dan Kane or if there was one other hand. We got one more comment question, and then we're gonna have final comments from our speakers. But was that someone else have their virtual hand raised that they want to ask anything? Okay. Well, Greg, Pat, and Amos, I'm kind of asking you for a little mic drop moments here. Any sort of final thoughts, comments, questions, wisdoms, challenges that you leave us with here today before we close out? I won't tell any of you to go first, but any of you want to volunteer to go first?
Well, I'll say this, for the Department of Military Support here for the state of Tennessee, the office in which I co-locate and I work with our jock here and co-locate and work with team on a daily basis. You just have to get out there. You have to talk to people. You have to get hands-on with the system. You really do. Like I had mentioned before, I mean, my first introduction to TAC was when we did that presidential inauguration for former President Trump when he came into office, and we had service members out in DC providing support, and we built a TAC overlay and pushed it out to those individuals and shared the location of Secret Service agents and law enforcement and their AOs and their responsibilities, and we were able to monitor everything from here, from our state, and that was really an eye-opening experience on just the power of TAC and some of the capabilities just even at that time for us. And ever since then, we've just been building the capabilities because you got to talk to each other, you got to talk to your interoperability and your interagency partners, and really build those relationships and utilize each other and keep everything going.
Well said, Pat.
Well said.
Greg, throw Greg and then Amos. Finish us off here.
I'm a meathead jock by nature. Okay, I played football in college, and I liken like public safety and first response to that. That's kind of how I view the world, and I have a burning desire not to lose. Okay, so when something happens and it's an event, and then it turns into an incident, then I want to do my absolute best to mitigate that problem and make sure everybody goes home. And this is a tool that I feel is going to save lives of a first responder, of a civilian, whatever. And it's almost to the point where it's personal, whereas if something happens and they weren't using TAC, I'm going to be upset. And we're going to have a conversation after that. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention AJ today. And he would be saying, TAC is the way, be a pro, be don't have enough pride that you're okay with not failing. Okay, fail at TAC before you can succeed at TAC. So I'll shut up now and get everybody on to the rest of their day.
Well said, Greg. And to Amos to round us out.
Yeah, Greg, that was great. So I like to tell this story, and it's real quick. About 8 years ago, my sheriff rolled up on a domestic, and when the follow-on supporting deputies rolled up in behind him, there's a guy opened up with an AK-47 and shot 78 rounds into 3 police cars. They hit one of our officers in the face. She still has shrapnel inside of her sinus cavity from that. And a civilian was hit in the hand, and they were pinned down in a ditch in defilé of the house on the other side of the road. And, so the call goes out. I was giving my boy a bath at the time. I'm immediately getting up, grabbing my gear, heading that way. I'm halfway there, and somebody says a different road name than the one that they originally given out. And I'm, doing 100 miles an hour down the road, boat up, turning around. Turns out I was going to the right direction. Somebody else misheard. We get on scene, and the only comms that we really have at the time is with the sheriff. And he's like, I am down in the ditch. We're not sticking our heads up, but we're right past the big barn on the left. Well, if anybody's ever been to rural East Tennessee, there's a big barn about every 50 feet. So we had no idea really where we were at. We're driving up the road with our headlights off, trying not to go off in the ditch to figure out where they're at. I had Google Maps pulled up on my phone just to try to figure out what the terrain looked like around it. It was a mess. Every single person that came up from the SWAT team, because they were coming in ones and twos up behind me, trying to direct them in defilé of that shooter's position, because we weren't sure if he, number one, was still in the house, or if he was just waiting to ambush. And one of the guys that worked for me in IT, when I called him on my way, I said, grab your laptop and meet me on scene. Well, he thought I was insane, because I didn't say go get a 50 caliber machine gun. I said, go grab your laptop, because I knew that we were going to end up searching a large area with a lot of structures, and we were going to have to find a way to mark that off. Had we had TAC and WASP back then, it would have been super easy. We would have went into that with confidence. We were looking at an astronomical job. We ended up finding him in a bear cave up behind the house, and got very lucky. He actually passed out. We found him up there, but he was set up with a overwatch position of our entire location, and he could have made our days really bad. It was us being careful that actually kept the guys safe that night. Everybody being careful, not just walking around in the open. But a tool like TAC is the answer to those situations. And so when you talk about buy-in, Charlie, getting people who, hey, what makes you want this? It's got to be somebody who has lived that life and worked that job. That rookie on the street doesn't understand why you need his location until something goes really bad. But if you've ever been the on-scene commander, you've ever needed to be able to make sure people are safe, and you're displaying resources, that's where the people you'll get the buy-in with. Because if they've ever run a scene like that, they'll understand this tool immediately. And that would be the best thing. Go find those people, make them your partners, and you'll get buy-in from them. It will make a difference.
Man, Amos, Patrick, Greg, and everyone else who have been here today, rock on. Thank you so much. As AJ says, TAC is the way. We'll continue to be doing these once a month on the random various TAC-related topics, but a little round of applause. Thank you to Amos, Patrick, Greg, and all of you for being here. Appreciate you all. Stay tuned for the email recap and the follow-up. Hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday, week ahead. Reach out to me anytime with comments, questions. Final thing, check out the CivTAC 2024. I put the link in the chat, but definitely make sure if you can make your way out there. It's the first couple days in October in DC. CivTAC 2024, put it on your radar. So, all right, everyone.
Thank you, Kevin.
Tuesday.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.